What's up, everybody? You guys really enjoyed our top 25 most underrated Edison Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are not being used or not being used enough. So we figured it's time for a sequel. And so today we got the entire Team Starlight members. It's me, Marcos, aka Macro. Joined today is the rest of the Team Starlight. We got Albert,
Hello.
Declan,
Hey.
and George.
Ah,
Let's just go right into it. Our first underrated card that we think should see more use is Dark Illusion. We know we've seen a few Blackwing decks either main deck this as a one of or even side deck it, but it's very few and far between. And I do think there are plenty of other dark decks that could potentially side or even main deck this card. It stops like Caius, it stops Deep Prisons, it stops the more common Compulse that has been coming around and being more popular.
I concur. I think it's a haymaker. I think it's a haymaker in like the bird mirrors where similar to like Starlight Road in the Blackwing mirror and like a few other cards that people really use to give them an edge in those mirror matches. It's very, very good. Yeah, I think like you said, like some other decks could give it a shot as well and maybe see some success playing it.
I did not even think about Icarus attack. Yeah, being able to negate Icarus is huge. Next up is King Tiger Wangyu. King Tiger Wangyu's effect is that whenever a monster with less than 1400 attack is summoned or special summoned, destroy those monsters immediately. This card must be face up on the field to activate and resolve this effect. There's a few decks that could successfully run this, essentially like a deck dev monster, but obviously there are some decks that aren't able to like run darks. The first deck that comes to mind is the deck that has been kind of falling out of favor in the meta, which is Hero Beat. If your issue is with frogs, yeah, you can run Fossil Dyna, but Fossil Dyna gets run over by almost everything they have. And I know King Tiger Wangu's stats aren't that great, but it doesn't get run over by like a Junk Synchron. So if your issue is specifically frogs and you can't deck devy them and you can't like deal with just the smaller annoying things that they can do, I just feel like this guy going first with some back row is kind of a house.
Yeah, I would not like to see this as a frog player. If this gets summoned turn 1 against me, it kind of just shuts off your whole game plan, especially against like combo variants like Forgs. Also Breaker, importantly, Breaker can't get over it unless it's got the counter, and everybody and their mother is siding Breaker now. So if you have like multiple back row to protect this guy, they have to just like summon Breaker swing, don't even get their pop. Maybe you got the Deep Prison. I could definitely see it coming into play. Everybody's prepared for Dyna nowadays, but not this card.
there's no like priority shenanigans. They can't like summon Lone Fire and then tribute it off. It just immediately dies. So I think that it does have like some niche application. Like you guys were saying, it's kind of just like a more situational Dyna that has better stats. And because everyone is playing cards that run over Dyna, I think it feels like it could be pretty good.
Now we got number 3. This is a personal pick of mine. This is Release Restraint Wave. I feel like nobody has really even... Most people don't even know this card exists. Its effect is you target one face-up equipped spell that you control, destroy that equipped spell, and then all face-down spell and trap cards your opponent controls. Now, in specific decks, the reason why I want to bring this up is specifically for Machinas. In Machina, you can turn your Machinas into Union monsters that act as equipped spells, and essentially just turn a Machina gear frame into a Heavy Storm. Now, obviously, if you already have your Machina Fortress summoned, like, and it doesn't get bottomless, then it's probably already in a good position. But Deep Prison is honestly like the true devil that you have to deal with. There's 3 of them, and having just the ability to kind of like deal with Deep Prisons, Mirror Forces, all these other more annoying battle traps is a big deal. Obviously, the downside is it doesn't deal with things that are like face up already, like Whirlwind and Royal Oppression. But I feel like if you can get around those specifically, like this could just be an interesting tech, and specifically Machinas, and also in decks that run equipped spells anyway. Supervised decks come to mind. I can't really think of anything else that really runs that many equipped spells.
Also, there's that cool combo with Machina Peacekeeper if you really want to get jiggy with it, where it reads like this all happens simultaneously, so you could equip Machina Peacekeeper, activate Release Restraint Wave, destroy all their spells, and search Gear Frame. Like, that's the dream. I definitely think that this is pretty good. Obviously, a one-sided board wipe is pretty, or, you know, back row sweeper is pretty good. But like you said, only the downside is the fact that it doesn't destroy face up. That would be very, very good.
Yeah, if it just said all spell and traps, I think it could see play like a lot more.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, I think we had this in the last episode for the 25 cards, but Delta Crow. But I
Yeah.
think the difference between this and Delta Crow is Blackwings is such a refined deck that like I'll see that card teched in every once in a while, and it's still really, really good, but it's going to be hard to convince a Blackwing player to like not play a standard list, whereas Release Restraint, most of the equipped decks or even like Machina, it has a lot more wiggle room for playing cards like these without feeling like it's just worse than other things you could be playing. And it could be put into a lot more decks than Delta Crow, which is obviously specifically for Blackwings.
Now we got a boss monster, probably like one of the most, if not the most underrated boss monsters in Edison format. And just recently at the WCQ was featured in a Teledad deck that got top 8. This is the Dark Creator. The Dark Creator is effective if you don't know. If you have 5 or more dark monsters in your graveyard, while you control no monsters, you can special summon it. And then once per turn, you can banish a dark to target a dark in your graveyard and special summon it. Darks are just phenomenal in this format. They're the most supported attribute in the entire format. And this guy's unfortunate downside, in my opinion, is the fact that he is kind of hard to get out. And then when he does come out, his attack stat is kind of what holds him back. You kind of are forced to put him in defense because he's very easy to deal with in attack.
Yeah, I mean, but 2300 is nothing to scoff at, and the big thing you're doing is you want this effect, because banishing a dark, getting a dark out, like obviously like you said, dark monsters are extremely broken, whether it's like you're summoning like an Armageddon Knight to get the effect, or you're summoning a boss monster in and of itself to just get the raw power behind it. Yeah, this card is pretty cool. Even this past couple weekends ago, we saw someone playing this in their Vayu Turbo deck, which, you know, the thing with this card is I think you need to be playing a deck that has dark monsters that are like absolutely insane. Like with Vayu, you probably are just getting either a beater or Armageddon Knight. But the decks that run like the crazy, like almost like the Norlarises of the world and the Teledad decks that run like more insane dark monsters.
Oh, and
feel
Phantom
like
of Chaos.
yeah, they can definitely take advantage of this guy more.
7 tools. I think Trapstun has become very, very relevant in today's modern way of playing. And I think that 7 Tools of the Bandit is going to start seeing more side deck space, because if your deck is very back row reliant, Trapstun can kind of just be the end all be all, lose you the whole duel, especially against like GBs. That comes to mind. Really, like Trapstun into like Debris into Black Rose can be really can hurt a ton. But 7 Tools of the Bandit has a lot of applications going even into a lot of these back row heavy decks that do run Trapstun. This is literally just a GB hate card at the end of the day, but it's also good against Blackwings. It's also good against, you know, just a ton of really strong traps. It stops Solemn, which is really one of the few cards that can do that. I think it's heavily slept on.
Yeah, I think this is kind of how we're moving forward in the meta, because talking about Trapstun, I think I've seen every single meta deck play Trapstun in like some lists. Like we've seen it in Diva Hero, Frogs, Blackwings, GBs, Gigavice, where some lists will play 1-2 copies in the main or in the side, to the point where Trapstun just becoming a normal card that you'll see in this format. So I think that counter traps in general are a cool thing to look at for the future of like Edison format. 7 tools seems really good for all those reasons that you said, Marcos. Just being able to stop Solemn seems like it'd be really powerful. And this card, because it's a counter trap and because the way things are moving, seems like it would be a good point in time to play at least one.
It makes to me the most sense in the bird decks themselves. Blackwings especially, I think, are the big one, where I think this makes a ton of sense, because when you go Icarus attack and they chain Trapstun, like if you don't have an answer to that, you get absolutely boned. And this just makes so much sense with their game plan, even beyond just negating that, because then you still get your pops, obviously. But beyond negating that, you can just like push through damage, which is like all Blackwings are trying to do, let's be honest. Yeah, it stops Starlight Road. Like I just think Blackwings is the one where this makes total sense.
But 7 tools like just guarantees that like your thing goes through without having the fear of like your Trapstun being dealt with like in a different way. Because like 7 tools being a counter trap is like, that's it. Once this happens, you can't even freaking negate it. It's like it's over. Dark Simorgh is a card I feel like a lot of people know about. People have definitely tried their best to implement this in more and more decks to no avail. Ultimately, its main effect being that it forces your opponents to not be able to set cards. I do think in Edison format, it can be very strong in a lot of matchups. Value Turbo specifically, being unable to set Raikos, being unable to set back row, it's really difficult for them to deal with a Dark Simorgh. But I really do think the reason why I wanted to bring it up in this video is that I see more and more dark decks that are running Stratos, and Stratos is a searchable, pretty consistently used wind, and I feel like Dark Simorgh could be splashed in pretty safely in a lot more decks that do run him. Like, you need to run like another wind, like a Debris Dragon or something, but otherwise, like, he's not that difficult to get out.
I love this card. I just want to say I want this card to work so bad. Like you said, Marcos, there's so many good win monsters in the format where you don't really have to compromise by playing worse cards to make this work. I was trying to do like you said, Stratos is a great wind. I think Ryza is also a great wind. So I was trying to do some like Hero Frog stuff with the Kaiases and the Ryzas. Debris Dragon's great. It's like got a really good effect surrounded by other good cards like winds and darks. There's something here, but I don't know what it is.
I like his stat line. I like the fact that he doesn't need to be special summoned by his own effect. So if he winds up in the grave or banished, you can bring him out somehow. There's some cookage to be had.
Yes, this is my suggestion out of this entire list. End of Anubis is such a cool card. I've seen it cited a handful of times in Frogs, and I've been thinking about this card for a while. In the side deck specifically, it kind of does a similar job as Vanity's Fiend, but it obviously has a few upsides, one being the stat line. Going from 24 to 25 is actually relevant. So like in the Frog Mirror, it runs over Monarchs, it crashes with absolute zero if you're playing against Hero Frogs, but it does the same stuff where it's blocking their Treeborn. The only thing it doesn't stop is Gores, which is kind of important. But besides that, it's really good. And something the team was talking about is the fact that Vanity's Fiend can't be special summoned at all, but this card can be. So in some decks, there are ways you can maybe cheat that out better, like Light and Darkness Dragon can bring something like this back. Whatever you want to be able to special summon it, you can do that, which is important to know.
If you see this come down, you're equally as scared as Vanity's Fiend in the Frog Mirror. And it hurts Value Turbo as well in a way that I think is pretty relevant.
I want to talk about both of these at the same time, but we have Dark Ruler Hades and we also have Ancient Gearbeast. They do have like slight different effects. We'll start with the Dark Ruler Hades first, but essentially they negate the effects of monsters destroyed by battle with, in this case, with fiend monsters you control. In Edison format, it's been poorly ruled that this negates flip effects, which it doesn't after Edison format. Revive King Hades was ruled, and this is worded like identically because it's like a retrade of the same card. The reason I want to bring this up is because just like how George mentioned End of Anubis being like that relevant stat line of being a little bit bigger, this guy has a relevant stat line to be able to beat over other monarchs. Simultaneously, it can deal with every flip effect. So like Raikos, if you run over a Treeborn, they can't summon that Treeborn again. It deals with Dupe Frog. It deals with just like a lot of annoying cards in a way that like shuts them down. Obviously, Caius is better, but this is like in my head, the fourth Caius. You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to run 4 or 5 Caiuses. That's why they run Ryza, because Ryza is like the next best thing. But this, in my opinion, if you're already running like more dark oriented version of your deck, could be like your 4th Caius, because it does deal with those monsters in a similar way that Caius would. It obviously has a huge downside of being of not being able to be special summoned from the graveyard, but also the fact that its effect only is relevant when you're attacking with it. That's just kind of like the downside. Everything has like an upper downside, and that's why it's underrated in the first place. But Declan, very similar effect, but like a little bit different, a little bit better or worse, is Ancient Gearbeast.
Yeah, I think like beyond stats, Ancient Gearbeast is just strictly better in my mind, because the fact that they can't trap this guy on battle stopper cards is just so big, such a big deal. Obviously something that you didn't mention is that these cards kill like Vayu and graveyard effects for the rest of the game, which is very relevant, as opposed to like if you Caius a Vayu, like maybe you're fueling a return and like a burial in a way that you don't know. These guys just kill them for the rest of the game. And then, yeah, the Ancient Gear Beast, obviously in Gear Town decks, which are criminally underrated, just being able to normal summon this guy is big. But I've seen people just side this in Frogs without any Gear Towns in sight because it's just actually that good against value. It doesn't get hit by deck devi. More and more decks are steering away from crows and ways to banish your grave and focusing in on other ways to sort of keep Frogs at bay, whether that be like oppression, whether that be pulling the rug, seeing more play in like value turbo standard lists. This guy absolutely plays around all of that. I think he's really, really good and could be seeing play in a lot of different Frog decks and maybe even other Gear Town decks that have yet to be cooked.
So now we got the Agent of Creation Venus and its three little friends, the Shine Balls. I bring this card up because I think there's just not like a lot of people are just afraid to like pivot fairies away from the more recruiter oriented version of the deck. And the only versions we've been really seeing is like Recruiter, Chaos, or Fairy Sworn, and also the Tethys. But I do think the Agent of Creation Venus specifically has such an insane effect in this format, being able to summon out essentially 3 other fairies. Like you just set up Christia on the spot. And there's definitely a lot of cards out there that synergize very well with these little shine balls. Obviously drawing them sucks. You know, you don't want to ever draw like your bricks. There are plenty of cards that make these cards like a lot more useful, like having a herald in your hand. Creature swaps can turn these little guys into like annoying nuisances for your opponent to deal with. Enemy controller, Horn of Heavens. There's a lot of different ways you could be using these shine balls, and I don't think it's been explored nearly enough.
Yeah, deck devi, like I know the shine balls get hit by it, but this guy makes your deck more deck devi resilient. If you get his effect off first, it thins your deck out 3 cards, which are essentially free pluses, and then you're less susceptible to it. She herself is 1600, so she gets over deck devi, which is very relevant. I think there's potential with Fairy Burn. Obviously, someone submitted some Jank Tank, and I think that needs to be refined a lot more. I would definitely play cards like Creature Swap, like you were saying, and try to get in on other avenues to burn your opponent. And I think this card is really good to support that strategy.
Justy Break just reads like a card that should be seeing more play. When your opponent's monster declares an attack on your normal monster, destroy all monsters on the field except attack position normal monsters. So that includes defense position dupes. That includes like set Rykos, set hamsters and stuff. Like if you have a Neos Alias with this in your back row, you just nuke the board because Neos Alias is considered a normal monster. This may be a card that should be teched as like maybe a one of in Hero Beat.
Is that Neos in the art?
Oh my god, it is. It's Neos. It's regular Neos.
Oh my god. Dude, it was a match made in heaven. I haven't seen a close-up of this card before, but that's awesome. They were trying to tell us the whole time.
This card seems really, really good. I mean, like, we have been seeing cards like Needle Sealing being cited for the, like, combo decks where they summon a bunch of monsters. And this card seems good because it doesn't have a real cost to it. You don't have to tribute the alias, and like Marco said, it destroys set cards. So we were talking about like Release Restraint earlier is really good, but it only destroys like face down cards, not face up cards. This just destroys everything except for the alias. I'm also like really surprised. I've never seen this card before. I haven't seen it played a single time, and it seems like it would be one of those things that someone should play it at least once.
Really important. There was the original printing of it, which is a secret. It looks gorgeous. It's worded differently. The errata that occurred actually occurred before Edison Format even happened. So this current wording is the Edison version. So in case you're looking at the original like wording, you're like, oh, that's not what the card says it does. Because the original wording is like, I think it's like the original wording doesn't say destroy all monsters. It's just like a mirror force. The errata, which happened pre-Edison, is this current words. Okay, just letting anybody know in case they end up buying this card and they're like, the secret doesn't say that. What the hell? Like, just so you know.
Polynosis is something that we have see some play. This is Solemn Judgment, but the cost, instead of paying half your life points, is to tribute a plant monster. We are seeing more and more and more quick draw. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying this needs to be played in quick draw. The trend of quick draw has been, let's get Dandy to the grave as fast as possible. Foolish Burial, Future Fusion, lots of different ways to cheat Dandy into the grave to make your deck more consistent. That plant strategies that run this card that maybe still tech heroes to, be able to cheat Dandy to the graveyard, in my head, can play this card. They can side this card going first if they're really scared about not wanting it going second. It could just be an awesome side card going first. Obviously, Solemn Judgment is just super broken. If you're tributing a token, that's even more free. If you're tributing Dandelion itself, that basically feels free. I just think that as we're seeing kind of plant decks and quick draw decks develop, people can play this card and try to take advantage of it. We've seen gadget decks run triple Horn of Heaven. To me, this is sort of in the same vein as that.
But it's like better. Like the fact that it negates
Exactly.
spells and traps is like crazy. Yeah, it definitely should be at least being seen at 1 in most plant decks, in my opinion. Like if you're spamming out tokens, like you're running debris quick draw, like at all, that means you're always having tokens. This is basically saying it's a free card. Trap Hole saw a lot more play, surprisingly, like later on, in like post Edison format, because it became searchable with trap tricks becoming a thing. But before that, like it just was always kind of an okay card that's seen some play in side decks against Blackwing specifically. But I feel like Trap Hole is becoming more and more of a card that you might want to start running, where like 1-for-1s are just like more and more relevant in this format, where your goal is just like tempo. If you can keep like out tempoing your opponent, like why not run Trap Holes on top of the bottomlesses?
Yeah, Trap Hole, I mean, effectively it does the same thing as Bottomless against Blackwings. The only downside is that obviously getting those level 4s banished so that their Blizzard can't bring them back makes Bottomless just definitely better. A lot of times, all you need to do is stop that one summon to turn skip them, and Blackwings just feel so underwhelming. So yeah, I think this card is obviously really good in that situation. I don't know if I like it in a lot of other situations, but
Glad Beast, right? Glad Beast I feel like would be decent as well, right?
yeah, that's actually true, because Gladby, sometimes you have bottomless set and then they just go summon ready Yari, swing attack you directly. So like I think that obviously if they tag in a bestie and they're trolling and they play into your bottomless, that's fine. But if you can just stop the problem right then and there with Trap Hole, yeah, I think Glad Beast is definitely a good call. This could be played against both of those decks.
I mean, it also deals with like fossil dynas. It's actually one of those cards that I would argue should be used. I know it's like I wouldn't want to say like use it in like frogs. Like don't do that. But like
Hey dude,
what are
people
the-
are playing bottomless in frogs now.
that's why like bottomless to me
So-
feels worse, because like if you set bottomless and they summon Dyna, what are we doing, right? You just
Yeah,
like shut yourself out. But Trap
Dude, you
Hole
might be
like is Trap Hole is more of like deals with your more immediate issues. It deals with vanities. It deals with vanities, fossil Dyna. What else are you like really worried about as a frog player? Like what monsters? Kaiku deals with it deals with all of them at the same time. Obviously, Regeki Break deals with all of them as well, but not having to pitch is kind of nice. So
You might be cooking.
moving on to Mirror of Oaths. We saw some players side deck this in their deck, but it's crazy when you really think about what it stops.
Yeah, we saw Hero Beat side this going first against frogs, and I really liked that idea, especially because, well, obviously if you don't know, it can stop Substitoad bringing out a monster, so it kind of prevents them from dupe blocking you, and also it's a +1, which is very relevant. So if they go, Substitoad, Tribute, they get out their Swap Frog, you flip this, this kills the Swap Frog, you get a +1, they have to just end on a dupe or something. That's way better than you just activating Smashing Ground. I said that you see all the time in Hero Beat, and just like giving them a free +1. Instead, you're the one getting the +1. Obviously, you need to have it set first, so that is very unfortunate if you top deck this card. That's probably why it doesn't see a lot of play. But I think going first against Glad Beast, this card is obviously goated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just like more going first cards that really lean into the fact that your deck needs to prevent other decks from doing the thing that they want to do. You can't just like necessarily always play a card like Smashing Ground and expect it to work out for you. Like sometimes you just gotta keep them at bay in the first place. So yeah, I think it's a cool card.
It also deals with like Lone Fire. It deals with just random cards that just special from the deck. Gemini Soldier. Like who knows? There's a lot of random stuff out there that it just surprisingly does decently against.
Next up, we got Cyber Phoenix. So this card is a card pulled out of time. It's obviously really, really good in earlier Yu-Gi-Oh formats. If you don't know what it does, while this card's in attack position, negate any spell and trap effects that target one machine monster you control. So this card is really, really cool. Also, a very, very relevant effect is when it's destroyed by battle, you get a draw card. So it replaces itself if it's destroyed by battle, which is very relevant. And then another cool thing that it does is it protects your fortress. If you're, I mean, I imagine you have to be playing this in Machina, like, let's be real. You're not just going to tech this in any random deck. So it protects your fortress from D-Prisons, Raigeki breaks, all sorts of cards that people will use to out it. The only card it doesn't really protect it from is like Mirror Force, Bottomless, Torrential. But other than that, I think the card's pretty solid. And then it always just has the fallback plan of being a machine itself. So it's never like totally irrelevant. You can just pitch it to summon the fortress from your hand. I've tried this card in like Gear Town variants of the deck. It's pretty interesting. Obviously, gadgets are probably just going to rule the day when it comes to machines a lot of the times, but I think there's some interesting machine decks out there that use this card instead of the gadgets, and then maybe have some other kind of cool cards that synergize with it.
Okay, this next one is a card that I actually got. Someone cooked me with this at a tournament the other day. They're like a spellcaster deck that ran it. This is Jowgen the Spiritualist, a card that became way more relevant during the spellbook era. It became like insanely strong, but its effect reads: you can discard one random card from your hand to the graveyard, destroy all special summon monsters on the field, and then neither player can special summon monsters. So it acts kind of like a lightning vortex and a fossil dyna at the same time. The only real downside this card has is the fact that its stat line is abysmal. But it can be special summoned off Shining Angel. It can be like it can be special summoned just generally, so you can like chain call the Haunted to it or whatever you want to do for shenanigans. It's like, yeah, it's a very weak, very tiny little guy, but the fact that you can just blow up your opponent's entire field if they set up is kind of nuts.
This card's busted and should be played in any light deck, point blank, period. The fact that you can get it back in Light Sworns with Beckoning Light, it's just strictly way, way, way better than Fossil Dyna in that respect. I think this card needs to be obviously in Fairies. If you're brave enough to even play Fairies, you need to be playing this card, in my opinion. The Lightning Vortex effect is super, super good. Yeah, I think it's very good. The fact that you can protect it with Honest is very relevant, and then you can switch it to defense. It has like somewhat relevant stats. Obviously not very good in defense, but yeah, I think it's a good card. I think it should be played in every light deck. Side deck, that is.
Divine Wrath. This is a card that I think should start seeing some more play. I kind of alluded to it earlier with the whole counter trap theory with cards like Trap Stun, and because I'm a frog player, I've tried all of the discard traps at this point. This is the only one that's a counter trap, and I think because of cards like Trap Stun, you're playing against GBs, they hit you with their Glad Beast, you try to Raigeki break it, they Trap Stun, you just went -1 discarding a card, they're banishing your Treeborn off Rediari, as opposed to something like Divine Wrath is just going to stop their effect and deal with the problem. I think because it's not just a one-sided GB only card, it's really good against, any deck that uses effects like frogs. Caius, Ab-Zero seems really, really powerful, and I've been thinking of trying this out as one of the discard trap options. It's just crazy to me that Karma Cut has been seeing a reasonable amount of play, and I don't think I've seen a single list on Format Library that's playing Divine Wrath.
Yeah, I think the only downside of Divine Wrath is like that you can't use it like whenever you want, but that's kind of the same way with Karma Cut in a weird way. Like Karma Cut is equally like, if they don't commit a monster, right? Like, which obviously that you'd prefer that, like you're fine, but Divine Wrath would effectively be the same thing because every monster they commit is going to usually have an effect, with the exception of like Vanity's Fiend, Dyna, right?
Yeah, I'll be real. This is too scary to run in Frogs. The idea of you getting this trapped in your back row is a little too scary for me, but I agree with basically everything else that George said, where it's like just stopping your opponent's effects with a counter trap as the meta is getting faster and faster seems so relevant. there's tons of decks that I could see that play discard traps that aren't worried about their Treeborn getting locked out. They could play this card, they could side this card. Just the other day, I was playing against someone playing the Garden Volcanic deck, and he was playing this card, and I was like, whoa, that makes so much sense. Like, you're running a billion discard fodders, you're playing like 6 discard traps anyways. He was siding this for like the relevant matchups, and I just thought that makes a ton of sense. I think it could be sided in a ton of other decks as well.
The proof of the powerless. So this is something that I want to bring up because I've been on the Discords, kind of seeing specifically Machina decks have been very poppin' these last couple times. One thing I've seen a lot of them complain about is the fact that it's very difficult to deal with like a dupe lock. Like the deck is very consistent. The deck is really like strong because you have like 4 Stratos, but then you're like can't deal with these little guys. Like what are we doing? It's like this is ridiculous. You end up being forced to run main deck Regeki breaks and stuff just to deal with a dupe. But meanwhile, Proof of the Powerless, what a strange and specific card. Activate only when you control a face-up level 7 or higher monster, and you destroy all face-up level 5 or lower monsters your opponent controls. The downside is your monsters you control can't attack this turn, but you can activate it on your opponent's turn. You can chain it to like when they summon like a Caius and then like just chain it. Now they make all the dupes miss timing. There's a lot of different applications that it does have, and I do think it's a card that's like a little unexplored. The big downside is obviously it doesn't destroy level 6 or higher, but level 5 or lower is like majority of the decks that you're dealing with. So you could, not saying like easily slot this in the main deck, but you could. I can definitely see decks that are easily spamming out 7s. This card essentially just becomes like a dark hole on your opponent's turn whenever you want to use it.
Yeah, I've never seen this card in my life. I think that like maybe decks like Amaryllis are other ones that come to mind that actually like I worry with Machina, like are you that consistently seeing your fortress and letting it stick?
It was more like
but a
Machina
deck-
Hero because they can make Ab Zero too. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, but Amaryllis is like the whole point of the deck is to get your 8 sticking, and like most of the times
True.
that happens. So yeah, I mean, I just think that this has some potential, but you would need to really, really have like a solid strategy to consistently get your 7 or higher on the field.
Okay, so this is a card I'm actually baffled. I've been seeing a lot of these Machina HRC decks. I'm gonna coin it as March, by the way. I'm gonna bring it up now. It's Machina, Avarice, Raikou, Caius, Hamster. It spells out March. Why are we doing this thing calling it like Machina Control, Machina HRC? And it's like, we could just call it like cute acronyms. Anyway, I've been seeing a lot of these decks doing really well, right? They're running the Raikou, Hamsters, but a lot of the times I end up seeing them running like a discard trap or two. Like I see them running like a Regeki break and stuff. And it makes sense. Like being able to pitch your Machina Fortress and then bring it back with a force is really nice. It just feels like a nice cool synergy that you do have. But one thing that I really like about specifically Night Assailant is that this card, if you pitch it in any way, can bring back like your Raikou, a Hamster as just a straight +1, right? But the other part that I think is really cool about this is that if you get deck dev, this card isn't actually like a bad thing to get hit, because if it gets hit, like you draw it for turn, like you're under deck dev game 1, it gets sent to the grave and then you just add back the Raikou that you lost earlier, or add back a Hamster. It's strange card, but I feel like that deck's already running 6 flip monsters and is consistently always trying to like fill up the grave anyway, and now it gives you more resources to have to pitch. I just feel like that this card feels like it should fit in the deck if you're already running like discard cards anyway.
Also, I know that Volcanic Garden by Barcode, he played this and he played a ton of discard traps. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense in heavy discard trap decks that run also flip monsters.
Oh yeah, and its effect's not even that bad. Like if you draw it and you have to set it, just pop in a monster. It's not that bad.
Yeah, Jeff Jones was onto something when he played this in his deck.
Oh, he did run that back at the original Edison, right?
Yep, it's at 1 in Edison. I had no idea until now.
You know why, right?
No.
It's because of the loop. Essentially, if you had 2 of them and you pitch Night Assailant, you can add back Night Assailant, so it just makes all your discard cards in infinites.
Go players know.
Yeah, they know. It's rough.
Next up, we got Neospatian Grand Mole. So there was a time where people respected this card in the side deck or even in the main deck, and then one card called Deck Devastation Virus became prominent, and now this guy sees no play. It's very sad to see, but I think that there's a lot of potential for him in decks that don't really get hit by deck devi. And you know, value players are smart. They know which decks to put deck devi in and out against. So maybe I don't know, Albert. I don't know about Black Wings if they can afford to put this in, but obviously Hero Beat, There's other probably big decks that I'm like blanking on, like Machina, for example. Like no one's keeping their deck devies in against Machina. This card is low key like the scariest card against. I will scare. That might be a bit of a stretch, but it's one of the scariest monsters against Vayu.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult card to deal with. It's like basically Mirror Force, Deep Prison. If you don't have those, you're kind of screwed a little bit. Like you said, Machina can just like summon the big bungus, like normal summon this right next to it, and then what are you gonna do? You know, they're gonna like clear the value board and then just start beating you down because every time you set, they're just gonna bounce it back.
Yeah, definitely use it in the side. The only deck I can think of off the top of my head that main decks it would be like Dark Calling decks because it's a rock. But like other, even then, I've seen those decks not even run this. Like I've seen them only run like the big golem. That's it. Like there's no other rocks, and I'm like, bro, Granmole, guys, what are we doing? Albert, I want you to talk about this one because you've actually side decked this card. Let's talk about Mind Crush.
Oh man, Mind Crush. Yeah, it just makes sense. Especially with Value Turbo, you're main decking 2 DDVs. Why not side it? It just gives you, you have hand knowledge when you flip DDV, and yeah, just Mind Crush just can seal the game in most occasions if you know what to call.
Yeah, this is like people have really lost the plot with this card. I feel like it doesn't really make sense why it's gone down in popularity as deck devi's seen more play. It really is actually backwards. And now that Konami's out of the picture, this has only become more broken because everybody's just accepting the ruling that you have to show your hand unless all legal copies are accounted for, whereas Konami didn't make you do that. So it's really only gotten more broken over time. And like flashback 3-4 years ago, this was considered like a side deck staple. And like the combo decks are even more relevant than ever nowadays. Like I would hate to see this. I go Salvage, Abax Substitute, Mind Crush, Call Substitute. Like it's just very, very good. I don't know why. Like it's shocking that it's even on this list, but I actually think it's criminally underrated at this point.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to this is that even if you don't, like, I just think it's one of those cards you should just always side into if you have the ability to, because I feel like you should know what your opponent's playing at that point after the first game. So even if you draw it without seeing deck dev, if you draw it without like them actually like doing crazy searches, there's like a really good chance you can still make it work. Like there's ways you can just know like how players end up playing, like they have like a specific card. But yeah, the one deck I think should be running this for sure in this game 2 and 3 are all these frog decks running Spiritual Art AoE. Like you're already running triple Water Art and you have like extreme hand knowledge. Why are we not going all in with the hand ripping? Like at least game 2 and 3 you can completely null and void their like their Vanity Fiends and their Fossil Dynas and their Kaikus. Like it just seems like so easy. Speaking of water arts, there are other spiritual arts out there. They're not nearly as good as water art, but the Earth and Wind ones specifically do feel really like super slept on. I'm gonna first talk about the Earth one. So spiritual Earth art Kurogane is you tribute an Earth monster to target one level 4 or lower Earth monster in your graveyard, special summon that Earth monster. The only deck that I want to even bring this up for is gadgets, specifically Machina gadgets. A lot of the time you live and die by whether or not your Machina Fortress survives, and a lot of times you end up running like Compulse, Trap Stuns, like all these other things, right? But Spiritual Earth Art can protect your Machina Fortress. Say like they bottomless it, you chain Earth Art, grab back that gadget that you just sent, and then search for another gadget. Like this to me,
That's crazy combo.
yeah, like to me it feels like value. Like it's like one of those things where it's like if you can like this, mark the date of when this comes out, a gadget deck eventually tops with this is like in the main deck or in the side deck or whatever, right? Mark my words, like because that to me feels like better than Compulse. It feels a little bit nicer than like a lot of these other like options that you have. It keeps your board presence up, especially if you're running these solidarity gadgets, because now you can come back with a bigger gadget still. Like yeah, like I think that the Earth Art specifically in Machina gadgets is slept on like crazy and maybe should be considered using.
When you compulse, and they bottomless your fortress, you just discarded a card and you compulse, you're like, haha, I kept my fortress alive. But it's like, bro, you just went -2. Like you discarded a card and then you had to use a compulse to just like get this card back to your hand. You're just coping. But if you flip this when they bottomless, at that point it's a plus, right? Because the gadget gets you a plus back.
Yeah, it would be like, because it's a
Or neutral.
It's a neutral, at least neutrals. You don't minus anymore at that point. Like Compulse can be argued to be a neutral as well because like it goes back to your hand, but the only way to get Fortress back is to pitch anyway. But now you have board presence. You have a monster that just searched a card. And specifically in Solidarity Gadgets that are running the Horn of Heaven anyway, like, dude, keep tributing these little Earth guys, bro. And now is the Wind Art, but I still want to talk about it because this card effect seems nuts. You tribute a Wind monster, target one card your opponent controls, place that opponent's card on the bottom of your deck. Do you know which card is a wind? Dandy tokens. Dandelion tokens are winds. So you can turn, like, talk about like Polynosis. Yeah, Polynosis is a great like addition. But like if you're already running like other winds like Stratos or like, you know, you're running like specifically in a quick draw deck, like this card essentially targets any card your opponent controls and then just makes it so they never see it again. And the last art was the fire art. It's the weakest of the four by far, like hilariously compared to all these other ones that have like more relevant in gameplay effect. The fire art is just a burn card, but burning for like, if you're running Volcanic Rocket, burning for like 1900, it could matter like in specific time rulings if you're running like a volcanic deck, but let's be honest, that's just a straight minus. Just a burn, which is what burn is. Burn is like inherently a minus type deck, but losing your guy just for like a 1900 burn is kind of not the play. So that's why fire art's not even going to be on this list, okay? But I just want to talk about it in case you're like, where's fire art? Like in the comments, okay?
Phantom Sky Blaster. Now this card, it has a really broken effect when you read it. Normal summon or flip summon this card. You can special summon any number of Sky Blaster tokens up to the number of monsters you control. So if you have 2 monsters on the field, you get 2 free tokens. And then as an other burn effect, it doesn't really matter that much. Sky Blaster monsters you control cannot declare an attack. Turn you activate this effect. Okay, whatever. The point is we're getting the bodies on board. Cards like Plasma are seeing more play nowadays, can combo with this guy. Like Enemy Controllers already sees a lot of play, can combo with this. I just think that there's some potential here, and getting those free bodies, at worst, he's just a guy, when you summon him, he gets 1 free token. You can utilize that body in whatever way you see fit. I think it's pretty cool and sees like absolutely no play. Like when have you seen this card played in a real deck? Never.
This next one is more just me wanting to bring up the roids. What happened to the roids? There's one guy that topped with roids once, and then like no one's ever touched it ever again. But Express Roids specifically has one of the most broken effects in all of Edison Format. One of the few +2s to ever exist. When this card is summoned, you target 2 roid monsters in your graveyard except Express Roid and add those targets to your hand. The big combo synergy is that you would add Armor Roid, which are level 8 roids, pitch both of them to special summon 2 Machina Fortresses in your grave. So if you're running like Future Fusion, like Chimera Tech Fortress Overdragon, you can set up your field, your grave really easily and just go off with Express Roid. It's a really cool wombo combo. He's a limit reverse target. He's also a machine that you just pitch. He's an earth machine. So if you're running Scrap Recycler, use him as a way to like keep drawing with Scrap Recycler. Like there's a lot of really interesting synergies that this guy has, but I feel like nobody's down to cook with Roids. And then Roids, on top of that, has this other card called Supercharge. When your opponent declares an attack while only monsters you control are machine roid monsters, you draw 2 cards. So if you draw into your bricky roids, like if you're running like, I don't know, like the other roids, I can't even think of them off the drill roid, who knows where you're running, right? Even these bricky roids just end up being like essentially like a trade-in type draw engine that you have. Yeah, it's a lot slower and it's probably not ideal, but like the fact that there's a card out there that just lets you draw 2 by just having a monster be attacked is crazy. Like I just think there's something out there for something like this.
Yeah, so Instant Fusion, obviously this sees some play, but I think it's way better than people give it credit for. Like we only see it played in zombies, like realistically, and everybody thinks zombies suck now. They're honestly getting disrespected a little bit too much, maybe. I think that this card has some applications as we're seeing deck devy become way more prominent. Nobody's main decking Oppression anymore, and this card just completely gets around that. It gets around deck devy, so when you get deck devied, you still have access to a card that you can say, activate this, then tribute for a Monarch, which I think is really relevant. I think it also just is very cool that you can get that water hero Mariner to the graveyard to fuel your Miracle Fusions. So I don't know. I've seen versions. Maybe it's the malicious variants of the deck of Hero Frogs that run only 4 heroes that have seen some success. Maybe this is like that 5th hero that you need that can, you know, when you're playing the 6 Monarchs, you can just go instant Monarch, and it's just one more way that you can make sure that you're not just stuck with a handful of bricked Monarchs if you somehow don't see Treeborn Frog, which will happen a percentage of the time.
I have a hot take, and it's Instant Fusion. Text as a one of in Dark Hero Frogs. hear me out. It could be your water hero that you're missing. It could be the dark that you're missing. Because you're one of the few decks that is running Plague, you can also instant fusion for that level 5 spellcaster, Musician King, and make Arcanite if you want. Obviously, extra deck space is already very tight. Who knows? Like, this could be like the glue that really like makes your Dark Arms more consistent, makes your Hero Engine more consistent.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I was looking at instant fusion for hero frogs. Is it kind of in my head it's like, oh, it replaces Ocean because of the Mariner, but it's actually more similar to Prodigy, where you're just trying to get a body on board. But the difference is, if you do care about like the dark count or making synchros, I think is probably more relevant. Prodigy is a little bit more limited as opposed to instant fusion. You can, like you said, bring out a level 5 and synchro with, I'd say Plague Spreader, but in regular hero frogs it'd probably just be Junk Synchron, or you know, whatever you really need at the time. I think that it seems pretty good, especially because, like Declan said, oppression isn't super huge in the main deck anymore. So I think you can afford to just play the one copy, and having access to another hero is kind of a problem that Hero Frogs deals with, which is not having your heroes and not being able to play your Miracle Fusions. So it seems pretty good.
And now, the final card. And it's a card that genuinely baffles me that it doesn't see really any play, and it's Super Polymerization. Super Polymerization, if you don't know, is the only spell speed 4 card in the entire format, because neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Now, what decks could be using this? I don't know, any deck with the word hero in it. If you have a hero at all, and you consistently are trying to see the heroes, the fact that you can just summon out a Ab-Zero off of your opponent's, at worst, Treeborn, at best, Dupe Frog, can be really nice. Yes, the downside is that you have to pitch, and the other downside is if you're summoning out an Ab-Zero using their Ab-Zero, it's like a worse Lightning Vortex. In some specific deck scenarios, getting your own Ab-Zero out while also getting rid of a problematic water monster your opponent controls can be exactly what you need, because it also would make Dupe miss timing if I am reading it correctly.
It certainly would. And I think that the deck that can really take advantage of this, that has been seeing a lot of play, is Machina Heroes. Machina Heroes is a deck that Marcus was saying earlier really struggles with the dupe lock. They run heroes. This card is just the best at breaking dupe locks in ways that don't feel terrible. Even when you Lightning Vortex sometimes, like, unless you are putting the pressure on and like about to kill them, or like putting them in a very low life situation, when you Lightning Vortex and you go -1 and your opponent gets those 2 cards back, it just feels really bad. But when you like summon your own hero, maybe you go Stratos, summon this, and then you chain Super Poly fusion with their dupe and your card, then Stratos resolves, they can't bottomless your guy. It just seems really good. Oh, also with what's his name, they all run the Prisma. You can go Prisma effect, chain Super Poly. Sure, you won't get to pitch the card to the graveyard, but it'll protect your guy from bottomless, trap hole. There's lots of cool neat tricks that you can do with this. And I think that decks that struggle breaking the dupe lock, this is like the best card to do that.
And I think the craziest part is the fact that it doesn't require your own monsters at all. So if your opponent does have, for example, like it happens a lot, Stratos and like a Treeborn, you could just make Ab-Zero off of their cards on the field right then and there. Like Ab-Zero is pretty difficult to deal with, like a lot of the time. Like, yeah, like you can just Caius and stuff, but like if they can't out it immediately, like that's annoying. Like seeing a random Ab-Zero appear out of nowhere can be like such a freaking terrifying thing to deal with. So that is 25 more underrated cards in Edison format. I think we could probably make a third video on this. I feel like we'd be pushing it, but please let us know in the comments down below if you which cards you're like blown away by, which cards you fully agree with, and which cards you did not see on the list that you wish was here. Remember, we do have a part 1 to this, so if there were cards not listed here, there's a good chance it was on the first video. So give that first video a check if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and Team Starlight signing out. Peace.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.